Hello, welcome back to Capital Region Watch. My name is Jack Etkin. I'm with Stuart Hackett. It is Monday, June the 16th, 2025. We're going to be talking about a situation in Saanich in which the municipality is going to spend a lot of money on their public works yard to do several things. It should require a vote by the people of Saanich because it's $150 million that is going to be borrowed, I think. But Saanich is going in a different direction. Instead of holding a referendum which lets people vote and which tells people that something is actually happening, they're holding something called an AAP. And Stu, you oppose the use of the AAP. Can you tell us what it is? And maybe first of all, what is the project that is going on?
Sure. So the project is the Saanich Municipal Yard. So you're probably familiar with it. It's on the corner of Quadra and Borden, so kitty corner to Reynolds High School. If you use the garden waste drop-off, you would have used that facility. The project is to redevelop that space. The space was built, several years ago. It actually, if you go in there now and you look at the space, the buildings look like they need some upgrading and some maintenance. So that's what the project is about. What Saanich is doing is they've looked at this space and they've looked at a proposal and they would like to see it redeveloped to something that is much grander than it is now. So they do want to redevelop the space and include some office space for a growing municipality. They also want to carve off a portion of the space, and their plan is to lease that to a developer, and their current plan hopes that the developer will build an 18-story residential, mixed-use residential commercial building.
One 18-story.
Two, actually. And they're hoping that they'll get $30 million as a result of doing this, and that $30 million will offset the work that they want to do to redevelop the public works yard. It would still cost $150 million in order to do what they're currently planning to do in the yard. So what an AAP is because Saanich needs to redevelop that yard, and because it's going to cost $150 million to redevelop, they need to borrow the money. Because they're going to borrow the money, they need taxpayer approval to borrow the money. And the way they're getting that is through this AAP. And essentially what that does is, as a Saanich taxpayer, you approve them borrowing the $150 million unless you complete an electoral response form which says you don't approve. What the electoral response form says is, I oppose Saanich borrowing $150 million unless a vote is held. And as you said at the beginning, that's what we think should happen. It's a lot of money, $150 million on top of increase in taxes already. And we think that that is such a large number that a referendum should be held.
Well, I would agree. I mean, and I really don't like the idea that the people we elect then go in a way to stop people from having a voice.
Yeah, and if a councillor or a number of councillors had run on the project, I'm running for Saanich Council, there's this project, I support the project, you support me, that's a different thing, right? Because that way it would have been a much more visible project, people would be aware of it, and then it would be a little bit more reasonable that perhaps an AAP could be a way to go. Even still, it's $150 million, and assuming that taxpayers agree, unless they say something, it just goes against, to me, all the principles of democracy.
Why is Saanich using an alternative approval process when, as you say, it just seems a much less democratic way to go?
Yeah.
Undemocratic, really.
Yeah, so they're using it because they think it's an efficient way to get approval. They're using it because they need taxpayer approval process. And if you read some of the literature that they've put out around the alternative approval process, what they're saying is a referendum would cost a lot of money. It would delay the project. So a specific referendum would cost a lot of money. So the mayor, when I corresponded with the mayor, he said it would cost about $300,000. That's a lot of money. but that's 0.2%, not 2%, 0.2% of what they want to borrow.
Of the $150 million.
Of the $150 million. I don't think it's unreasonable. And that's if a standalone referendum were to be held. If it was part of an upcoming municipal election in October 2026, then it could be just included in the ballot. Who do you want for mayor? Do you support these, which councillors?
There
do you
would be
support
no cost,
this?
basically.
There would be, I'm sure there'd be some, but it's minuscule. So there's that option as well. Either way, we think that it's a democratic obligation on the municipality to actually to ask taxpayers if they support this project and borrowing this amount of money, because they're going to pay for it for the next 30 years as taxpayers. And that's on top of other increases. I mean, my property taxes went up about $600 this year. That's without these kinds of things. And as I said, there's already $9.6 million in alternative approval process approved already this year. As a Saanich taxpayer, that will be included in your upcoming taxes because you approved it, even though you may not have known that you did. By doing nothing, you approve. And so if we add this on top of all the other increases, we just think Saanich taxpayers should be asked the question.
So Saanich councillor Natalie Chambers,
Yes.
just in the past few weeks, I think, made a motion at Saanich Council to have, or at least discuss, the idea of having a referendum instead of an alternative approval process. And her motion could not even get a second.
Yeah, it's really, disgusting, unfortunate. I mean, there should at least have been some debate around that. At a town hall that Saanich, the municipal, had, I can't remember what it was. I think it was in April. I'm not exactly sure when, but we had citizens had the opportunity to address the council. The mayor wasn't there. He had something come up. He couldn't make it. But the other councillors, many of the other councillors were there, and at that town hall, before the AAP was put out there, I, as well as some others, said, Saanich Council, don't do an AAP. We don't think it's democratic. We don't think it's the right approach. And Saanich Council listened, didn't say anything after that, but then they went forward with the AAP anyways, which is something, that we are experiencing with this council. Is they give you the opportunity sometimes to speak to them, and they sit there like you're doing. They listen and they nod. And then they just do what they want to do anyways. And that's, it's an unfortunate part of the way in which this council operates. As an example, Saanich Council will tell you that they've done some engagement on this project. The project actually started back in 2018, and as a taxpayer, I actually didn't know. But when I looked at their timeline, it started in 2018, and they did some consultation then, they did some maybe in 2022, and they did, and they've recently even did some in 2024. And if you look at the summary of those consultations, one of the main things that the residents who attended those consultations and engagements, one of the main things they told Saanich Council was, please maintain the garden waste drop-off that you have at that yard. It's a service they value. And that, if you look at, as I said, if you look at some of the reports they've produced of the consultation, that's included as one of the statements. One of the main things Saanich residents said was, keep the garden waste drop-off.
It's always busy. There's a constant
and it's
flow.
not included in their new project. So they're going to spend $150 million. One of the main things that residents said was, please keep that, and it is not going to be included. And they don't have a proposal for what they're going to do.
Has Saanich done any polling to find out what percentage of people think this is a great idea?
Well, they will use the AAP as an example to say that if it passes, then over 90% of the people do support it. Now, we believe that people are not aware of it.
Well, the only reason I'm aware of it is because a few people like you have told me that it's happening. Otherwise, I wouldn't know.
No,
it's not big news anywhere.
No, it's not. Saanich did make I think it was on Czech News when they issued the AAP. There was a story on Czech News. They have been making some posts on Facebook, for example, and on their Hello Saanich page, there's posts. So they are communicating, but the problem is it's the message isn't getting out there. If you're not on Facebook or you're not part of their looking at their Saanich group, you just don't know. For example, and we can confirm that because we've been standing out front of the municipality,
The City Hall.
the City Hall, the Municipal City Hall, and we've been talking to residents as they've been going in to pay their taxes. And we would say, excuse me, are you a Saanich resident? Yes, I am. Are you aware of what Saanich is doing with this AAP? And they look at you like, what are you talking about? Like well, what's an AAP? And so we would explain it, and we try and be fair in explaining what it is they're doing. But the bottom line is most of the people going in there do not know that there's an AAP, an alternative approval process in place, and they don't know that Saanich is using that as a way to justify borrowing $150 million. I was out front on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday last week, and during the day we got 145 people, 155 people, and then 197 people to actually sign the form saying, yeah, no, I didn't know anything about that. And they oppose it unless there's a vote.
So you got 197?
997 in one day as people going in and paying their taxes or whatever they were doing in Municipal Hall, I'm not sure. But we need 10% of the electors to say that they oppose this. That's 8,700 and some odd people. And so, getting 200 people a day at Saanich Municipal Hall isn't going to cut it, right? I mean, it's a good chunk, but we really need other people to become informed of this, and then support it, and support the electoral response form, complete an electoral response
so
form,
that there can be a referendum
and
people can vote.
That's right. And some people have come, when we talk to them, and they say, I don't know anything about it, and then they say, I need some more information. They don't want to sign.
Yeah.
I need some more information. So we would give them some information. We'd point them to the Saanich website, and if they go and do some research and then decide that they're okay with it, I'm okay with that.
That's great.
Right? Because they're the type of person that would approve it on a referendum. It's about being informed and then making a decision based on being informed. It's the fact that people are not being informed, and therefore we don't think it's a democratic process.
And I think that what Saanich City Council is doing is no different than what I've seen Victoria City Council doing, which is where I've lived for the past many years here. Although I've also lived in Saanich, and I just moved back into Saanich, so now I'm
welcome back.
part of this as well. Thank you very much.
Hope you filled out a form.
Yeah,
they have till June 25th.
There's this thing that once they get elected and become city councilors, they really seem to think it's all about me. It's what I think is so important. What the public thinks, who not only elected me, but is paying me, and whom I'm supposed to represent, that all goes out the window, and I've never understood exactly why, but it's the case.
I don't know. I agree it is the case, and we've seen a few examples of it in Saanich. So just as an aside, an example that people are very aware of are the bike lanes on Mann Avenue.
I've heard of that story.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the story with that is that Mann Avenue residents didn't know that this was happening. All of a sudden they see all this stuff happening in front of on their street. So they say to Saanich, whoa, 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 whoa. So Saanich says, oh, okay, yes, come and talk to us. So the residents go, they tell Saanich they don't want to proceed with this, they don't need to proceed with it, et cetera, and Saanich Council listens and nods. And then they did it anyways.
And what happened? I think what happened on that particular street is they lost all their parking.
Yeah, that's right. And I go down, that's exactly what happened. And so that's a problem for residents, for sure. And I've been down that street, and those bike lanes, in my opinion, are not used very often. I was just down there 3 times today already. I never saw a bike on there. And it's a nice day for cycling today. So you're right, that's exactly it. And so they lost their parking. They've had to, either expand their driveway or do something else with the vehicles they were parking in front of their own house now. And so it's very, as a resident there, you feel that you're not being listened to, that nobody cares, and that Saanich is just doing what they want because it's part of their active transportation program.
And that's a very legitimate thing to be thinking, because they don't care and they're not listening.
They don't
and
appear
that's the
to.
way it is.
I have to agree. And as you mentioned, there was one councillor that put a motion forward to essentially say we should do a referendum, or I think the motion, she may have also said, or a different time said, let's expand the timeline. Like, why does it have to be June 25th? Let's
Right, because 2 weeks
right?
from now,
Yeah.
the alternative approval process is finished, and if you don't have 8,700 votes or signatures, it loses, even though nobody knows it's even happening. I mean, nobody knows it's happening.
Well, that's our belief, that nobody knows. And we only know that through the evidence that when we actually stop people walking into the municipal hall. Are you aware of this? 90-some-odd% say no. So yeah, it just doesn't seem, the message isn't getting out there. And Saanich is using the same mediums all the time to do their messaging, and that's just not enough. Like, just on Facebook and in their, do you ever go to the Saanich website to take a look at what's going on there? No, and most people don't. And yet that's where they would point to say that, no, they're informing the public. Yeah, they're putting it on a website
that nobody goes to.
Yeah. We're trying to draw attention to this. When I say we, I mean this organization I've become a part of, Save Our Saanich. We have put our own money in to put some advertising in Saanich News and Times Colonist to say, hey, Saanich residents, you need to be aware of this. And we're pointing people to a website we have, saveoursaanich.com. But also when we're talking with people, we're pointing them to the Saanich website as well. I mean, I really believe that you should make an informed decision. And so it's important to understand from Saanich's perspective what's happening as well. It's a valid perspective. They also need to understand, we want people to understand from our perspective why we think this approach, for example, isn't a good approach.
So you said you're not opposed to the building that Saanich wants to do.
I'm not opposed to the fact they need to do some redevelopment.
Okay.
Yes.
So can you talk a bit about that? And
so
maybe at a lower cost.
Or at least
if people
explain
approve the 150.
Even explain where the 150 million is going to be spent. Because when you take a look at what they're actually going to construct for Saanich, which is, there's 3 buildings in their rendering. One of those buildings actually already exists, from what I've been told. So it's really just 2 buildings that they are doing for the Saanich Operations Center. But we're not sure exactly how the 150 is going to be spent amongst that. Is it all just for the operations footprint, or is there going to be some of the money that's going to be spent in order to make the area that they want to lease to a private developer, in order for that to be at a state where a developer would want to come in, because there's a creek that runs through there that they have to make sure they accommodate that. And so we're just not we're not sure where the money is going to be spent, and we think if there is a referendum that we would get some options, and maybe maybe for 80 million they can do this, and maybe for 150 it'll be something better, but at least people could be informed and make a decision on that.
So if I phoned Saanich City Hall tomorrow, and I said, where is this $150 million going to be spent?
Yeah.
And how is it going to be spent? On what? What would the answer be?
I think they would point you to their operations. They have a redevelopment website, Saanich Operations Center redevelopment website, and in there they have some information on there is a statement in there that says the 150 is going to be spent on like site preparation or words to that effect. But no, you don't know how much is going to be for a building. You don't know how much is going to be for paving. You don't know how much is going to be for, it's not detailed. So you wouldn't be able to get, I'd be surprised if you get much more information than what they've put on their website already.
I phoned a few weeks ago to ask if there's going to be one building, one 18-story building, or 2.
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't get an answer.
Yeah, what I've seen in their public information is there are 2 18-story buildings. 18 stories, that's not a little building. That's a huge building. And again, that's, they're hoping a private developer would come and want to do that. And then again, they're assuming about 30 million. They're planning for about 30 million from that to offset the cost of what they're going to do. It's still going to cost 150. And that's if it really comes in at 150. chance, you know,
Of course,
it'll be different, right? And
There was recently in North Vancouver a sewage treatment plant budgeted at $1 billion.
Oh, yeah.
That came in at $4 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, $3 billion
Yeah,
in the small city of North Vancouver.
Yeah.
I mean, things are completely out
Yeah.
of control.
Well, I've heard that and I don't quote me on the number, but I have heard that the Saanich Fire Hall that they're building on Elk Lake and Royal Oak, I think it is over budget by about 60%. I've heard anywhere from 60 to 90. I'm going to go with the 60%. So 60% over budget. So if 150 is, you know, if they're 60% higher than 150, then, you know, you're looking at an extremely expensive project, as well as the 150 that doesn't include the interest cost. So it's going to cost, as a taxpayer, you're going to be paying interest on that 150.
Do you know what the tax impact will be on a household?
They do have some numbers. They quote in the numbers they're quoting, the 150 is actually going to be split into two chunks. Some is going to be paid back through increases in utility, water, sewer, that kind of stuff, and another chunk is going to be paid back through taxes. It's going to cost. They usually say things in over 4 years it'll cost so much. So over 4 years it'll cost about $186, and that value includes a 0.85% increase in your taxes. But that 0.85% compounds every year, because it would be 0.85% and then another 0.85% and then it gets added on. So by the time that kind of rolls out, it'll start by being about $50 a year. Doesn't sound like a lot. No. But that's if it comes at 150, right? That's if everything goes, right. And that's not including any of the other increases. That's not including anything for the $9.6 million that they've already got approved through this AAB. Like you know, there's.
I mean, to me, the issue is, how dare you do something that bypasses the people of Saanich because you think it's a good idea.
It's provincial legislation. So this isn't just some idea that, you know, this municipality dreamed up. It's provincial legislation.
Yes.
And so we think there actually should be some changes to the legislation to at least limit the amount of money they can go. Like maybe there's, or the purpose. If there's an emergency, okay. You know what I mean? So if there's just some better barriers around what you could use it for, some guidelines.
You know, I've long thought that our city governments are largely out of control and undemocratic and just generally uninterested and incapable of protecting the interests of the people of the city here. And I was involved with the Blue Bridge thing when it happened. Not involved in it, but I followed it very, very closely. And at one of the meetings that they had, because there was so much misinformation put out by the city on that, and the media, it was, I mean, so I spoke to somebody who was very involved from the city's point of view. And I said, why are you supporting this? Because I knew the person a little bit. And they said, if you knew the agreements that have been made and the deals that had been signed, then you would support it too. And I'm talking about getting rid of the bridge, getting rid of the rail bridge, which was even worse, and then building this new thing at a cost of $90 million. And they said, if you knew what was going on, and I thought, well, why don't I know what's going on?
You're exactly right. Why don't I know what's going on, right? And that is the issue. By doing this, they don't need to explain things a little bit more. They don't need to. And why? And you're right in terms of, you know, I hate to generalize. You know what I mean? Like I hate to paint everybody with the same brush as they don't care. But it's actually hard for me right now not to do that because people, it just seems disingenuous. They ask to be consulted. They ask for your opinion as a resident and a taxpayer, and then they just seem to ignore it. And it is, you know, and sometimes there's one or two councillors that support, but the majority do not, and the majority just, as you said, they think that their idea is the best, and so, you know, they should proceed with that regardless of what others think. And I don't know. I have never been an elected official, so I don't know what happens to you when you become an elected official. But I certainly, if I was an elected official, I don't think I would change my tune. I think I, you know, even I worked for the province for 40 years. You know, I respect the public. I respect what people have to say, and I believe as a boss, I listen to the people that I worked with, that I worked for, and I think as an elected official, you should do that as well. And I think, you know, they just seem to lose touch.
And in a democracy, the power is supposed to be with the people, not with the elected officials.
Yeah.
Who cares what they think?
Yeah.
They're supposed to ask
Yeah.
the public and do what the public wants. And here in Saanich and throughout the CRD, you know, we've lost so much of that. And and then provincially and federally, it's even crazier.
Yeah. And, you know, I think, and generally speaking, the municipal elections have the least turnout.
Yes.
Yet it impacts us almost the most. You know, it's our garbage, it's our streets, it's our, you know, it's really unfortunate that the turnout in municipal elections is as low as it is. Yeah. It's, you know, around 30%, which is terrible.
Yes.
And we're hoping that by raising awareness, we actually can create some accountability with the councillors, and we're hoping that we can stop this process.
Well, Stu, thanks very much to you and your group for the work you're doing, because it's fundamental democracy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it looks like Saanich City Council will go ahead. It's going to be very hard to get the 10% to stop them, but people should keep an eye on this and not let them get away with it.
Yeah.
We're out of time.
Okay.
Stu, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Thanks everybody for watching
Thank
this
you.
segment of Capital Region Watch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.